Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Loudguns, and today we're going to be big rock hunting on Lyria. We found a new mining spot that's probably worth checking out, and as a planetary location, hopefully it will change the scenery a bit from asteroid mining, which is where I know we and a lot of you guys have been focusing your efforts. But I think it's worth sort of changing things up and experimenting with some of the moons as well, getting used to operating on a planet, and also just, the scenery is beautiful in Star Citizen, so don't spend all of your time in the asteroid fields. Just before we get into the mining trip, though, just to say a big thank you to everybody who's followed the channel. And if by the end of this you think it merits it, then consider hitting the subscribe button. Also, sort of the initial tip off about this location came out of a chat I was having with someone in the comments. So please feel free to sort of drop your comments down below. Let me know if there are any good spots that I'm missing so I can go and check them out and do a bit of research on them. Also, down in the video description, there's a link to our Discord channel. So if you are looking for people to play with, to try out some mining operations with more people, that sort of stuff, or if you just want to talk Star Citizen and get some advice, then please feel free to come and join us. So without further ado, let's get on to searching for some big stones. So Lyria is one of the moons around ArcCorp. It's got a pretty decent density of Quantanium overall, but one thing we found is that the Quant seems to particularly like spawning around mountains, particularly the flat areas next to mountains. So one drop-in point which is particularly good for the right type of terrain is Paradise Cove. I would encourage you to experiment with some of the other drop-in points because it might not always be light, and it's easier to do this during daytime. And also sort of pirates could watch these videos too, and you might notice an uptick in pirate activity around this sort of area if you just sort of limit yourselves to one position. The key thing you're looking for though is like mountains and then the flat land next to them. So when we're within an atmosphere, sort of I'm just using my prospector here, but the mole's the same, just make sure you switch to those VTOL engines. It will just help conserve fuel and make it easier to fly. So one of the cool things about atmosphere mining is that you can sort of visually identify these rocks. So you'll see here a beryl rock, and all sort of non-Quantanium rocks have this sort of general pattern to them, whereas the Quantanium rocks have those red veins, so you can very quickly visually identify that it's a quant rock and it's worth scanning, or it's not a quant rock and I'm not going to take the time to scan it. Just helps speed you up looking through these rocks. And one of the best things about sort of down on the planets is that unlike the asteroids, which always spawn around 5,000 mass, the nodes on moons and planets can range from sort of 2,500 to 8,500 mass. So if you've maybe been struggling to crack some of the rocks at 5,000, I know it's a bit tricky if you're starting out, you might want to try down here because you might be able to find Quantanium rocks that'll let you practice a bit, but they might be in the 3,000 to 4,000 range. And if you find the high percentages still, that's still going to be a decent amount of Quantanium. What we also found when we took a look around was that you get these sort of El Dorado clusters of large amounts of rocks spawning all together with Quantanium in them. And primarily in this area we were going around near Paradise Cove, the individual rocks could be the Quantanium or other materials, but the clusters were always Quantanium. Sort of anything with two rocks together and above was Quant. So in this instance, we've got sort of 10 rocks which all contain Quantanium, and this is what makes it sort of maybe an ideal spot to run a small mining op. So particularly if there's maybe a group of you and some friends who have prospectors, I can see this sort of area being perfect for that sort of prospector swarm type mission. And if you find a decent cluster like this and maybe it contains sort of a decent few viable rocks, then you could sort of almost bunny hop back to the refinery. So one of you stays and marks the position while the other ones get back to the refinery and come back to the position before you mine some more Quantanium, just so you can actually take all of the viable rocks home. So just a note on the refinery, the nearest one is ARC-L1. So the downside versus sort of the Crusader area is that you'll lose the plus 3% refining benefit from Crusader L1. That said, I did some quick tests, and we're coming to ArcCorp to sell for the majority of the time. So actually, by cutting down the journey time, you might sort of mitigate the loss of efficiency. So while I was checking out this spot, this rock piqued my interest. It's a bit hard to read the numbers, but 8.1k mass with 21.3% Quantanium. And that triggered me to think, could I find a rock which had 500,000 credits worth of Quantanium in it? So after some more pretty exhaustive searching, I found this one. So again, due to the colours of the planet terrain, a bit hard to read, but it's 8,275 mass with 41.67% Quantanium. So I have to admit my eyes lit up quite a bit when I saw this one. So there are techniques to break big rocks as a solo pilot. The trick is to use a surge module and a stampede module. You will need to double drop the surge. So you basically surge, it nearly takes you all the way up to the green, you let it drop back down, and then you surge again to take yourself into the green, at which point you drop the stampede module to crack the rock quickly. I've managed to do it with things of 8k mass, but not 8k mass on Quantanium. The materials involved in the rock sort of will complicate resistance and all these sorts of variables, and I tried and I was not able to break this rock solo. Maybe I should have given it more goes, but also I was a bit worried about, making a mistake which could have led to the rock blowing up entirely. So time to call for reinforcements. So this is why it's always good to have some friends around, because thankfully I was able to pop a message up on the Discord and Red was able to come and join me. And he brought a prospector over as well, so we've now got a prospector and he's just in my mole. So worth noting that if you're in the mole, you can sort of set yourself hovering, sort of helps to use the VTOL, and you can still get out of the pilot seat and go down to the laser. So it's only red over in that mole. The mole itself will just hover there. It does sometimes do a visual bug where it just appears like you're sinking. But don't worry, that's not really happening. So he's using the Helix laser, I'm using a Lancet, and at this point he's just giving me a stable 60% power, while I'm then using my laser to control the brake. When you're mixing a Lancet and a Helix, I'd always do it this way round, because the Helix has that debuff on sort of throttle sensitivity, so there's a bit of a delay between you scrolling the mouse wheel and things moving for the Helix laser. Whereas the Lancet is a lot more, sort of has a lot more finesse to it. So that a Lancet in this scenario controlled the actual sort of ultimate power. With his laser at sort of 60-odd%, he's never going to keep enough power going into the rock to break it. So I can just always, if things get a little bit hairy, I can just cut mine to 0, and his will be fine. So we've got the first break done nice and clean, so I'll just speed the video up a little bit while we sort through these pieces and decide what to take. Now, it's worth looking at why did we bring a prospector and use a prospector and a mole as opposed to just jumping in 2 of the mole lasers. And the reason is for planetary mining, the prospector's maneuverability is going to really help sort of sight out what rocks contain Quantanium, and help split things up for the mole. So here I'm taking out a piece which doesn't have any Quantanium in it, just so that Red has a much clearer view from the mole without having to jump out of the mining laser he's in, go to the pilot seat, shift the positioning of the mole. And actually I'm going to extract these pieces just to completely get them out of the way. It's also worth remembering that even when the cargo hold of your ship is full, if you're using extraction mode, you can still extract these rocks and it will cause them to disappear. So even if you are completely filled up, you can still sort of clear the path, if you like, for your your main carrying ship to have a clearer sight on the pieces that it needs to collect. So yeah, there's quite a lot of opportunities, I think, to planetary moon mining like this, to just experiment with some different sort of combinations of ships. Yeah, you might want to do the prospector swarm. You might want to bring, almost like we've got here, a mole in as the main carrier. So the mole with its additional cargo capacity could just be coming back and forth between the refinery and the planet, while the prospectors actually hunt out the rocks to mine and get them broken up, get the detritus cleared out, so that the mole has like a nice clear extraction corridor. You might also benefit from bringing sort of some smaller, more agile ships to do the initial scanning for you. And particularly, like I say, being down on a moon like this is going to be a bit more dangerous than sort of disappearing off out into the Aran Halo. My challenge to various pirates remains. No pirate has managed to find me on a Quantanium mining trip in the Aran Halo, whereas I could imagine we'd be quite a sitting target if any of Mongrel Squad decided to come along while we're doing one of these trips. So maybe those scanning ships could also be fighters. So you could build in sort of an element of protection to your runs. So one of the downsides to the planetary mining, though, is that some of these pieces can sort of go a bit janky and disappear on you through the floor. So this piece we had to sort of clear out everything above it to finally get to it. And I actually think one shard of this rock might have just completely disappeared through the floor on us. However, still a very good haul, so we'll take this back to the refinery. And here we are, we've got our order to submit. And we've got 5,965 units of raw Quantanium. We'll use Dinnick Solvation because we're in no rush. And that will net us 5,666 units of refined Quantanium. So a price of 88 credits, that's going to be 498,608 credits. So I hope nobody will accuse me of hyperbole calling that 500,000 credits. So there we have it. Visit Lyria, see the frozen wastelands, see the big Quantanium rocks, and see if you can mine them. Hopefully that was a guide to a new mining spot for some of you. But if you've got a better one that you'd like me to check out and experiment with, then please do let me know in the comments, and let this be sort of the point of throwing the gauntlet down. That's the biggest rock that I've ever found, biggest amount of credits I've managed to get out of a single stone. But please let me know how you guys get on. I'm hoping that somebody is going to immediately beat this and find something much bigger. So I think maybe sort of a bit like fishermen. So once you've got used to catching fish, there's nothing else to do but try and hunt for the biggest ones you can. And, stop and take a quick selfie next to them as well. So thanks very much for watching all the way to the end. If you did find this interesting or helpful, then please consider hitting subscribe to the channel. I'm going to try and keep this content coming. So as long as someone finds it useful, I'll probably keep doing it. And with all that said, I hope to see you out there. I hope to see you in the next one.